These final hours tells the story of the immediate aftermath of a massive asteroid impacting Earth, leaving Australia with only 12 hours left before the blast reaches them, where a guy named James decides to kick off his final hours on Earth by screwing his girlfriend Zoe one last time, where immediately after she decides to break the news to him that she's pregnant with his kid. But that just pisses James off, and he tells her that it doesn't even matter since they're basically already dead. So he starts getting ready to leave, and Zoe asks him to stay, but he tells her that he doesn't want to just sit there and stare out into the ocean waiting for the blast to hit them, and confesses that he's scared and tells her that he doesn't want to feel anything. But as she tries to comfort him, she discovers a hickey on his neck that he tried to hide with makeup, so she tells him that it's okay and to go and get messed up and screw his other girlfriend. So he proceeds to head to his friend's doomsday party, and as he drives through the city where society has devolved into total chaos, he listens to a guy on the radio who says that the asteroid struck somewhere in the mid-Atlantic and that Europe is already gone. But on his way through town, he comes to a roadblock where some random crazy guy with a machete hops in his car and yells at him to drive while ranting incoherently about the end of the world. But when they come to a guy walking down the street, he yells at James to stop and give him the keys before he hops out of the car and starts hacking the guy to pieces in the middle of the road. So James takes the opportunity to make a run for it, but the crazy guy notices and goes chasing after him. So James cuts through a bunch of backyards and then hides from him under a car where he tries to stay quiet despite getting a nail stuck in his arm during the chase. But when the guy decides to go chasing after somebody else, James crawls out from under the car and tries to find a new ride. When all of a sudden, he notices a van pull up to a house and two guys hop out carrying a little girl screaming for help. So he goes to steal their van, but when he hears the girl screaming from inside, he reluctantly decides to grab a hammer from the floor of the van and go inside to rescue the girl. So using his trusty hammer, he manages to kill both of the guys after a brief struggle and proceeds to rescue the girl, who tells him that she got separated from her dad when they ran out of gas and told her to hide until he got back with more. So he takes her back to her dad's car, and after she wails on the horn and calls his name for a bit, James tells her that he's obviously not there. So she shows him a picture of her dad and says that he told her that if they ever got separated, for her to meet him at her aunt's house. But James tells her that he's barely got enough gas to get where he's going and says that he'll drop her off at his sister's house instead. So she reluctantly agrees to come along to his sister's, and on the way she tells him that her name is Rose. When they make it to his sister's place, she doesn't answer the door, so they go in through the back, but while taking a look around, James sees a bunch of water coming down the stairs, so he tells Rose to go for a swim in the pool while he goes to check it out. But when he gets upstairs, he finds the bodies of his sister and her husband in the shower with the water running, so he shuts it off, and when he looks outside, he notices the graves of their 3 kids in the backyard. So after trying to drink away the image of what he just saw, he rushes out to the garage and gets in his sister's car and is about to drive away when Rose knocks on the window and asks him where he's going. So he tells her that he's going to a party, and Rose says that maybe somebody at the party can take her to her aunt's place. But on their way to the party, James is bothered by the hole in his arm from the nail, so Rose offers him a pair of her socks to stop the bleeding. But as she's patching him up, James notices a police car pull up to the library behind them, so he goes to ask them if they can help Rose find her dad. But when he gets inside, he sees that the officer has his gun out and appears to be about to use it on his family, so they turn around to leave, but the cop asks to talk to him for a second, where he tells James that he doesn't have the heart to do it, so he tries to give James the gun and ask him to do it instead, but James says no, so he asks James to just forgive him for what he's about to do. So James tells him that he forgives him, and then grabs Rose and leaves and stares at the library in the rearview mirror as they drive away. Once they finally make it to the party, James uses the radio at the gate to call his friend Freddie that owns the house, who's happy to hear from him, but tells him that his other girlfriend Vicky is pissed that he didn't get there earlier. But when Freddie opens the gate and they get inside, James finds out that the party is a bit rowdier than he was expecting and sees that people are even playing Russian roulette. After making his way through the crowd, he eventually finds Freddie and asks him where his sister Vicky is, but he says that he's not really sure and informs James that he's just finished construction on his underground doomsday bunker, but tells him not to tell anybody about it. So So as James goes looking for Vicky, Rose tells him that she's super uncomfortable and doesn't think that anybody there will take her to her aunt's house, but James just tells her to relax and gives her some chips. Once he finally finds Vicky, he tells Rose to go for a swim in the pool while he and Vicky head upstairs, where Vicky tries to get a bit frisky, but James isn't really in the mood and tells her that his sister is dead. But she doesn't seem to give half a crap about it and is annoyed that he even bothered telling her at all, which just depresses James even more, so she decides to try cheering him up by giving him a sneak peek at her brother's doomsday bunker. Meanwhile, out in the pool, Rose gets cornered by some crazy lady that wants her to replace her dead daughter and says that she understands if Rose feels a bit weird about it, but offers her a pill to help her feel better. So Rose asks her if she'll take her to her aunt's house if she agrees to take the pill, and the crazy lady says that she will, so Rose agrees to take it, and shortly after she does, she proceeds to start tripping balls. Down in the bunker, when James points out that it's not nearly deep enough to save them from anything, Vicky has a mental breakdown and says that she's scared and doesn't want to die. James tries to tell her that it'll be okay, but that he has to go take Rose back to her dad because that's where she belongs. And when Vicky asks him where he belongs, he tells her that he doesn't belong there. So she says that if he leaves, that she'll kill him and then herself. But suddenly, Freddy comes down and complains to Vicky that he wanted to be the one to show James the bunker. But when he notices that she's crying, he asks her what's wrong, so she tells him that James said his bunker isn't deep enough and that they're all going to die. Which gets Freddy pretty pissed off, so James tells him to stop filling her head with nonsense and then heads upstairs, where he finds Rose puking next to the crazy lady, so he demands to know what she gave her. But when he picks her up and tries to leave, the psycho twat starts screaming that he's trying to steal her daughter, right as Freddy comes out and yells at him for ruining his party and tells him to give the girl back to the crazy chick. James tries to tell him that Rose isn't her daughter and points out that she's clearly nuts, but suddenly Vicky wanders out and takes the gun from Freddy and points it at James as the crazy chick yells at her to shoot him. But after a tense couple seconds, Vicky decides to shoot the crazy chick instead and then tells James to leave, but when he gets Rose back to the car, he sees that it's been blocked in, so he decides to just get out of there on foot. But after jogging for a few miles, he spots a drunk taxi driver taking a leak at the side of the road, so he sneaks up behind him and steals the guy's cab, where he rushes Rose over to his mom's house and asks her for help. So after getting Rose cleaned up and put in bed for a bit, his mom gives him shit for dropping by with some random kid when he clearly had no plans of coming to visit her at all. But he tells her that he was gonna come by, but that he didn't plan on bumping into Rose. So she asks him if he's heard from his sister, and James says that he went to her house, but he doesn't have the heart to tell his mom that she's dead, so he just says that she wasn't home. So he asks her how she's planning on spending her last hours, and his mom casually tells him that she might just try finishing a puzzle. So he goes out to the shed and grabs some jerry cans to fill up the car, and then goes and wakes up Rose and gives her some water before loading her in the car and going over to the porch to say a final goodbye to his mom, where she tells him that she's proud of him for trying to help Rose and holds his hand one last time as he wishes her good luck with her puzzle and leaves to go take Rose to find her dad. Where on the way, the guy on the radio says that all of Southeast Asia is now gone and that they only have a few hours left. When they finally arrive at her aunt's house, she excitedly runs inside and calls for her dad, but when they go inside, the house is deserted. So James goes to take a look out back, where he finds the bodies of Rose's entire family. But when he hears Rose coming, he tries to stop her from going back there so she doesn't see them all dead, but she insists on seeing her father, so James calms her down and tells her to wait there so he can bring him over to her. After she sees her father, James tries to get her to come with him, but she tells him that she wants to stay because her father wanted them to be together in the end. So he decides to stay there with her, where she tells him that she wishes he could have met her dad, and James tells her that his other girlfriend is pregnant and one day he would have been a dad too. Rose asks him why he's not with her now, and he says that he messed things up, so she tells him that he still has time to fix it. So he takes her advice, and after sharing an emotional goodbye, he drives off and watches as Rose disappears in the rearview mirror. But as he's racing back to be with Zoe, the car starts to overheat. So as smoke starts billowing out of the engine, he tries to keep driving, but eventually the inside of the car starts filling with smoke, so he gets out just before the car bursts into flames and decides to just run the rest of the way. So he makes it back to Zoe's just in time as the blast starts rolling over the horizon towards the shore, and as he looks out the window, he sees Zoe standing on the beach. So he runs out there to her, but she's furious at him for leaving her to spend her final hours alone. But he apologizes and tells her that he loves her, so in their final moments, she forgives him and tells him that she loves him too. So they hold each other and spend their last seconds on the beach watching as the blast comes barreling towards them.